Yes, you're right. Welcome back to Kosi's Arsenal podcast. My name is Kosi. We're going to be looking at the Arsenal transfer talk segment where I think we have taken so long without doing transfer rumors and they have accumulated. I think the biggest three stories that I'm going to talk about are not the only ones, but throughout the week, we have international football, so I'll be giving you much of the transfer news in this week. Martin Odegaard, Yavis Bissouma, and Patson Daka. Those are the three names I've seen trending around Arsenal transfer talk, and those are the three players we are going to be discussing in this video. Martin Odegaard happy to stay at Arsenal. What is the price? Of course, I've seen HITC saying that we will have to trigger a release clause of around 350 million. That is outrageously crazy. Then you have Yavis Bissouma, again, another midfielder that is linked with Arsenal, and reports indicate Arsenal want to make Yavis Bissouma their top target transfer in the midfield. And then Patson Daka, United is interested, but we are ready to rival them for the striker. That and more is coming up here onto the Arsenal podcast. So guys, smash the like button. Let's get the party started. And I'll start with Martin Odegaard. I did shoot a video about him. I think I shot two videos about him yesterday. The first one on his brilliance against West Ham, and then the other was about how Mikel Arteta wanted him to stay, and all the uncertainty that was surrounding his future at Arsenal. Now reports have also still reports have been produced, and they're saying Odegaard could actually want to stay at Arsenal. Real Madrid want to keep him. Zinedine Zidane doesn't want to keep him. Now, it's like a conundrum that it's not easy to solve, but I think it's something that we can get at the end of it at some point in time. For example, I think if Arsenal started negotiations right now for Martin Odegaard, make Real Madrid very sure and very aware that you need the player. Probably it's a deal that could happen in the summer. I just think, but the more we let Odegaard speak for himself, through the talent and his performances, the more Real Madrid, are going to be very, very keen on letting him go. Of course, that's the biggest question. Can Real Madrid let him go? Can they sell him to Arsenal? It's the biggest question, because first and foremost, he has a release clause of 350 million. That is on one side, and the question is, can Arsenal even pay that release clause? If you still remember the Thomas Partey saga, we had to pay the money, we had to pay the release clause, to get him. Now the question is, can we pay that much for Martin Odegaard? It's crazy. You can't pay 350 million for that boy. It's just crazy. He's worth it probably, but I don't think anyone is going to pay 350 million. Even if it were PSG, they're not going to pay that money. There are also reports indicating that the real value of the player would be around 40 million pounds, and Real Madrid would want to collect around 45 to 40 million pounds, in the player, which I think for me is a little bit, fair, because his talent, he's 22 years old, he has a big resale value, he is a player that you can sell at any point in time. He has a very big future. You can sell him at a record transfer. I think it's all about now Arsenal concentrating on whether they want Martin Odegaard or they do not want him. But for me, I still think it's something that it's a deal we should go for. It's a deal we have to fight so hard to do, although it's not going to be an easy one. He's one player that I think has had an impact on Arsenal ever since he signed, and nobody, absolutely no one can actually question the impact of Martin Odegaard at Arsenal. So that's the first story. Of course, many people are saying he wants to stay, and where that comes from, because he did get playing time at Real Madrid, and that's the reason as why many people are telling you he wants to stay. He will be happy to stay, and of course those are Arsenal sources. So I can't really say he wants to stay, blah blah, because those are Arsenal sources, and they will want it. They will tell you he wants to stay because they want him to stay. But I think he would be happy to stay if we are going to give him the game time. We are going to make him a main man. We have already actually made him our main man, in terms of creativity and all attributes of our game going forward. So I think it's a deal that's going to depend on so many parties. Arsenal, how serious are we? Martin Odegaard, where does he want to play football next season? And then Real Madrid, how willing are they to let the player go? As long as those corners are solved, I think Martin Odegaard will sign for Arsenal. 350 million for me is unacceptable. It's either 40 or 50 million, or we will not get this, get the player. Now, the other player linked with Arsenal is Patson Daka. This boy has been linked with Arsenal, I think, for the past 2 seasons. He's been so good. Actually, I think he comes into the limelight when Erling Haaland goes to Borussia Dortmund, because he was, in the shadow of Haaland. But when Haaland actually goes to Dortmund, then, he gets this kind of, atmosphere where he proves himself as a good striker. He's the leading striker at Salzburg. And now, almost 4 or 5 giants, in Europe are interested. United is interested. I don't know why United are interested in Patson Daka, but they're interested. Of course, Edson Cavani is going to play for them for season in, season out, and I think his age does not guarantee that he's going to be there for the next 5 seasons. So they need a younger striker. Anthony Martial doesn't have that prowess as a striker. So and we have already said it. Martial is not that kind of striker that Arsenal. Oh, United, not Arsenal. That United can actually depend on. So, Daka linked with Liverpool, Manchester United, Arsenal, and Chelsea. I think it's going to be the next thing, when it comes to the striking line. It's going to be one of the strikers that are going to gather a lot of attention, especially at a time when I think, strikers are becoming a little bit scarce. Because if you look around, it's Haaland, Daka, Odegaard. You can't mention 10 young strikers. Maybe Balogun, if I can mention Balogun. You can't mention 10 young strikers that you feel are going to be on top of football in the next 5 years. And I think Daka is one of them. So I think if Arsenal is going to sign Daka, it's going to be it's going to be a lot of competition. There's going to be a lot of competition, but I don't see why we flexed for Daka. There's already Odegaard. I've shot videos about Odegaard and how good he is, how we do how he would impact Arsenal and the front line. I think we just need to go for Odegaard. But anyway, that Patson Daka story is there. United is interested, and Arsenal will rival United for him. Now, the biggest story for me is Bissouma. 24 years of age. Leicester City are saying they're interested and they will rival Arsenal for Yavis Bissouma. Smash like button. Let's just talk about Bissouma for a moment. I think I last talked about Yavis Bissouma 2 months ago or 3 months ago in January. 2 months ago in January when we were actually so much linked with him and Tariq Lamptey from Brighton. One of the things I think are so difficult about this deal is if Brighton stay up, it's going to be very difficult because they will ask for a lot of money. He's one of the best midfielders in the league. And I don't know why Leicester City are interested, because they have Wilfred Ndidi who actually gives them the same thing as Bissouma. And they also have Tielemans, who I think actually gives them something very different from what Bissouma gives them. But they are there are 2 players that play the same thing. I don't know why. I don't know why they're interested. Maybe for issues of squad depth, but I don't think it's for squad depth. I look at Leicester City as a club that will never have squad depth. They don't have that money to run such a big budget. But if you look at Arsenal being linked with Bissouma and saying he's going to be our main man in terms of transfer targets in the midfield, it makes sense, but not a lot of sense. If you remember our first episode of Arsenal, of sensible Arsenal transfers, I said we need a player to partner Thomas Partey, but not one like Yavis Bissouma. Bissouma is good if you don't have Partey, because I think what Yavis Bissouma gives you is more like a defensive midfielder in that caliber of Thomas Partey, technically gifted, physically able. That kind of player. And I think we have that, we have that person in Thomas Partey. What we need is a player who links play at a very, very sharp pace, a player who can create chances, reliable chances, at a reliable scale from deep in the midfield. Try to, to get that responsibility off the shoulders of the number 10 player, be it Odegaard, be it, Emile Smith-Rowe. And for me, that's why I said I need a player like I need a player like Saul Niguez. And what's funny with Arsenal fans, when I say we need Saul Niguez, they say, because you don't like Granit Xhaka. But when I say we need Yavis Bissouma, they tell me, yeah, he would be a very good partner for Thomas Partey. So, that's a very high, level of hypocrisy. But what I think is, if you go for, Yavis Bissouma, then you're killing a sport that is very, very important in Arsenal, because then you'll have to put Granit Xhaka out of the lineup, which I think he needs to be on the bench. But then what Yavis Bissouma gives you is similar to what Thomas Partey gives us. All we need is to give Thomas Partey game time and a lot of time to concentrate on his footballing attributes. I think he's a very great player, by the way. I don't think he's a disappointment. I think he's so good. We have seen so many times when he's been, out there providing what he can provide, for Arsenal. And when he has been on his best, Arsenal has been just sparking. We've been dreaming. But the problem is injuries, and he's been, affected by injuries. I also think he's been affected by culture shock, because if you look at how Martin Odegaard is coping up with with the UK culture, and how Pat is, coping up with the UK culture, there's a big difference, very, very big difference. But I think we don't need Yavis Bissouma. Of course, not so many Arsenal fans are going to believe me on this. But for me, I think if you have Partey, you need a player like Santi Cazorla to play with him deep in the midfield. We need someone who's more technically gifted. We need someone who is more entertaining in that midfield. Because Partey, for me, I think Partey is entertaining, but he can be the raw 6, and then you need a number 8 who is actually entertaining. For me, that is not Bissouma. But anyway, share with me your thoughts, what you think about Yavis Bissouma, Martin Odegaard staying, and then Patson Daka. And I'll speak to you in the next segment of Arsenal Sensible Transfers. I'll be talking about Yavis Bissouma, by the way, what he would actually provide with Arsenal, what he would actually provide to Arsenal, how we would line up with him, because I think he's that kind of 6 that if Arsenal got him, we would actually have a midfield where so many people would actually, tremble at. But I don't think he is a sensible transfer. I still think we need a technically entertaining player in that midfield. Think about how Semawa. I don't want to talk about how Semawa, by the way, because we talked about him so much in the summer. But I would go with House Semawa or Ben Rama or that kind of player other than Yavis Bissouma. But tell me what you think about those stories, and I'll speak to you later on.